So I can see it. 1 second, please. I'll have to. Yes, we are starting the class. So, namaste and welcome everyone. I'm starting the class. Sadashiva-samarambham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru-paramparam Shruti-smriti-purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat-pada Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yes. We have started chapter 4 now, and this chapter is entitled Jnana Karma Sannyasa Yoga, which means gaining a state of Naishkarmyam. Naishkarmyam means freedom from the cycle of karma and its results. What binds a person? What binds a person, any jiva who has a will, and human beings alone have maximum will. What binds a person is the fruit, phal, karam ka phal. That is what binds a person. Nishkarm means freeing oneself from the cycle of doing action and then the cycle of receiving the fruit, means undergoing phal. Both these. That naishkarmya is a bhav, is a sthiti. It is a state. It can only be achieved or attained when one has established in Atma Gyan, Atma Gyana Nishtha, which means my perception about myself is now corrected. Even with a body, I am not deluded to believe that I am the form and I will die with the form. Even as my body continues to go through its changes and whatever my prarabdha brings in terms of sukha and dukkha, in spite of all of that, the vision of an Atma Gyani is firm that none of these things affect me, my own nature, who I am. Nothing affects it. That sthiti, that state where one is abiding, where one is anchored in. To convey this point, constantly I say, our vision today is anchored in I am this name, I am this gender, I am this age, etc. That qualification that I have on I is where my vision is anchored. It's unshakable. However much I may say, no, I don't think I am this form, in my behavior, in my words, in my actions, in everything, it emerges as a form. The vision, the conclusion of me being this jiva seems to be steadfast. As long as this jiva notion is steadfast, it springs me into action, and then we know the cycle. Karma and karma phal. Kartritva bhavakya karam will have its bhoktritvam, for which janana, punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, which means characterized by sukh and dukh. As long as there is sukh in life, I have absolutely no problem. I think this is it. I have accomplished something in life. But the moment dukh comes, I lose my vision. That dukkha seems to unsettle me, and that dukkha becomes something, emerges in me, which propels me to start action. I want to act to remove this dukkha. So naishkarmya bhav sthiti is actually nothing but freedom from this urges, which is karma sannyas, only possible through jnana. First three verses, Krishna is glorifying the parampara, that this knowledge is anadi and it will remain as long as creation is there, as long as dharma is upheld, so long creation will have this knowledge available. So in the first two verses, he had said the lineage handed down, this knowledge, this guhyam, this rahasyam, which means this precious, I would call it precious. Rahasya, we have translated it as secret, as mystery, but I think the ideal thing should be that it is a rahasya, means it is a precious, it's rare and it's precious. And because it is so precious, everyone is not able to receive it. It becomes subtle as well. Being subtle Being subtle also, it will miss the perception of a person, even if it's given. So he says this knowledge of self-growth, of discovering freedom from our own bondage, how to get that and how to get that eligibility for it. That knowledge is now given, and he tells Arjun, I have given it to you also. In the second verse, he said, Kalena Mahata Yogo. In lapse of time, as time proceeded, this yoga was lost, which means it's exactly like how we see so many traditions getting lost by the time the next generation comes up. What traditions we held, we were told to hold. Our parents already told us that they had left so many, and they were already giving us the minimum that should be upheld. By the time we are passing it to our children, it falls further. Those traditions also fall. Simple traditions, like even a simple festival. During Diwali, there used to be pujan. And it was not just shopping and etc. It was visiting each other's homes, sharing the sweets, wishing each other good, etc. All festivals and so many traditions. As time proceeds, we question those traditions. We question cultures. We question our own beliefs. And as time moves, science progresses, we believe that there is progress man is making because we are able to create more concrete buildings. We are able to have virtual world of interactions. Means obviously this is all advancement. So in the light of that thinking, we question our own traditional views and outlooks, which were supposed to be followed by every generation. What the Vedas said were karmas. They were not beliefs. They were not opinions of Vedas. They were not one person's scholarly treatise. What Vedas proclaimed was eligibility for this moksha, one's own gati, and which was dependent entirely upon karmas. And as I said in the yesterday, Vedas look at us from a very large span of our own existence. He's going to say very soon, Krishna, that I remember them all, you don't remember them. So as a jiva in our upadhi, with our limited body, mind, senses, intellect, this complex that we have, the minute we come into a human form, this upadhi has no memory of what the previous births have undergone. So as a result of which, we don't see the vastness of our life, the totality in which we have already lived, the experiences which we have already gone through, or which we have already karmas, etc. But Vedas see that in ignorance, there is no personalization of one person or another person. Vedas have very clearly set forth the path that as long as you hold your view of an individual, you are likely to be attached by default to your senses, to your body, to your equipments, and you are likely to be a samsari. Therefore, the gati is do your karmas, etc. in this way, which meant all your panchamahayagnas, as we saw in the 3rd chapter, do your karmas as yoga for chitta shuddhi, do your aradhanas, upasanas, whatever was given out. On certain days, there are certain karmas to be done, certain pujas, whatever they said. The idea was this will keep your sensory involvement in the world of instant pleasures checked. I'm going to repeat this. What really happened When Vedas give us this knowledge of eligibility, it is entirely based on the upadhi we have. And our upadhi can only act and it can only think, feel. These are the only two equipments, really speaking. Our senses don't have any independent function of their own. They have the strength that has acquired by our own past indulgences, but senses do not operate on their own. They operate on the strength I have lent them by my previous indulgences. So my will, really speaking, is only in my action and in my thought. I can change my actions. I can do them. I need not do them. I can do them another way. Kartum, akartum, anyatha va kartum shakyam. It is possible. At the level of thoughts, I can change my thinking. That is also possible. Between these two that are possible, Shastras gave us a whole lot of Vedas gave us every day Nitya karmas, Naimittika karmas, Nishitta karmas, etc., differentiating it from Kamya karmas, Pratishiddha karmas, etc., giving us this knowledge, leaving it to us. The reason that they gave us all this was certain days, do your Panchamaha, every day, do your Panchamaha feed the birds, feed the cows, whoever you are receiving from animal world, plant world, etc. Make sure you've contributed something back to them. All that, yajnas, and special occasional things like now, Shrad, etc. Now, as time is moving forward, more and more of this, every generation questions it, because Vedas are not sensory praman, whereas science and the modern education is sensory praman. So, but natural, our leaning towards following that will seem more authentic. It will seem more realistic. Whereas Vedas would have the interpretation that they are ancient, that they are old. And however much you corrected, everybody I think has heard it is Sanatana. Sanatana means it is continuously, eternally flowing. It doesn't end. It doesn't disappear. It won't get destroyed for good. When he says that in the first verse, Krishna says, this Avyayam Yogam, imperishable yoga, I have given it to Vivaswan, and so this parampara starts. But as time proceeds, more and more people start living at the level of the senses, at the cost of giving up following what karmas and upasanas they were supposed to also continue doing in their life. So our previous generations did a lot of karmas. Most of our grandparents, I think averagely, every household had a lot of karmas in some form or the other. Our parents' time, it fell. It coincided with independence and it fell, and suddenly there was a surge of another wave of integration of values, Western values, etc., education. And so there was much more compromise that happened. Even in our lifespan, we see that nashtaha that Bhagavan is talking of in the second chapter, in the second verse. So though the knowledge is avyayam, as it is said in the first verse, yet second verse Krishna says, mahata kalena, in a long lapse of time, this knowledge is destroyed. And when he says nashtaha, it means there is diminished. The right word would be less people are upholding it. So supposing in Satyug, 90% of the people were upholding dharmas. By the time Kalyug has started, after Krishna exited, Kalyug started. And we are still in very early years of Kalyug. As Kalyuga continues to move on, this proportion of people who follow dharmic life goes on reducing. And there is a reason for it, Krishna tells us. What is the reason? Shankara also tells us. Because, where did he tell us? Why? Because in the Sambandh of the third verse, he says, Durbalan ajitendriyan prapya. Ajitendriyan means those who do not have any control over their senses. जिन्होंने अपनी इंद्रियों को नहीं जीता, अजितेंद्रिय, अजित इंद्रियान, one who has not conquered their senses or mastered their senses, or at least learned to control their senses. Who are they? They are durbalan. They become weak people. They actually become, they give in to the senses and they are weak. They have weakened themselves. When it has gone into their hands, means prapya. When such people, even if they receive this knowledge, even then, this yogam imam upalabhya lokam cha apurushartha sambandhinam. It becomes, once it has gone into such hands or such people, it actually makes it unavailable as a purusharth for the next generations. It breaks the chain. Apurushartha sambandha. Actually what it is, upalabhya lokam. Available in the world as what? Asambandha. It is not available in other words. What is not available? This purusharth that one can put for Atma Vidya. This knowledge that he's talking of, this twofold pravritti and nivritti, marg. This twofold marg, he says, that clarity of what one should do with one's life, that vision of how I will conduct my life, the whole span that I have earned by my prarabdha, whatever number of years they are, what sukh and dukh has to come, but how should I use the human birth towards my own moksha gati? That clarity of vision can only come because of this knowledge. But once the traditions, this parampara weakens itself, which means it becomes sparsely available. Sparse means in pockets you will find it available. It will not be available like how it could be. Every household had a gyani. Even a few years, just before, a few centuries ago, how did our Sikhism come? Every household, the eldest one was a Kshatriya, given to protecting the country. Very soon you find, when Bhagavad Gita says this, you have to relate it, that it is not talking of an ancient thing. When it says, I'm giving you eternal knowledge, means this will continue. The same thing that was applicable in BCE is the same thing applicable now. 21st century, 25th century, whatever, till the Kali Yuga lasts, till the last of the Kali Yuga, when the Pralaya, Mahapralaya takes place and the whole world dissolves, disintegrates, the Pancha Mahabhutas go back into their own source, Prakriti merges back into its own Swabhav, lays dormant into Purusha. Purusha and Prakriti both remain dormant there in the Supreme. That Supreme is, to us as Advaitins, we know it is Brahman. It remains as sourceless. It remains latent. But once the creation has begun, in this creation, this dharma cycle is the only thing that can give one. He has said in the previous verse, previous chapter, you can find out which verse it was, when he said, if you follow this, chakram, you will get both Abhyudaya and Nishreyas. Both. You will get prosperity also, and you will get your Gati also. Mahata Kalena. As time proceeds and we find it that less and less people want to be committed against the force of a society which is sensory oriented, pleasure oriented. Their value structure, their right and wrong is determined by what goes in the world now and what is acceptable in the world now. Therefore, to stand against it needs a lot of bal. That bal comes actually, really speaking, through control of the indriyas and following the path that is laid out. The one who follows it is balwan. But the one who gives in to this indriyas becomes durbal. And so Shankara has given us, he gave us this reason in the introduction of the Bhagavad Gita itself. In the Upodghata Bhashyam also, he has pointed the same reason there. When more and more people start to not follow, more and more people start to not follow this yoga in the form of, what are the two words he said in the third chapter? Third verse, Sankhya Yoga and Karma Yoga. These twofold paths that he said in the third verse, when more and more people do not follow these twofold paths of pravritti and nivritti, it becomes, this is a very important, beautiful word, it becomes apurushartha sambandhinam. Means the world has got disconnected. It becomes unavailable for practice. It becomes unavailable to know. And we all know, especially those who are ready to give up their life and pursuit to know this Gyan, we know how much struggle there is to put the vision right back into its source. Years go by before one wrong interpretation needs to be clarified. You have to have the right sources. It diminishes itself. Those who know this Gyan diminishes itself. And therefore, he says, I have now given you this, Arjun, because you are my bhakta and my sakha. So though it is eternal, it is still gets diminished in time. ये ऊपर नीचे होता रहता है. Dharma goes, followers of dharma increase and then reduce. Something else takes over, etc. This goes on. But now, for a long period of time, it had got diminished, sparsely available. I have revived it, Arjun, by giving it to you. And why have I given it to you? You are my bhakta and you are my devotee. And what was that bhakta and devotee? You are eligible. Again, in the third chapter, 31st verse, if you refer back, he says, Yeme matam idam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavantaha anasuyantaha muchyante tepi te api karmabhihi. The ones who have shraddha and are anasuya, they do not cavil this knowledge. That shraddha and not caviling, not criticizing, is what he's talking here as the two qualities of Arjun. What are they? Bhaktaha means he has shraddha. Sakha means you never cavil your friend who you consider a friend. Do you do that? You're not a friend then. However bad habits your friend has, in your drishti, once a bond of friendship is formed, in that bond of friendship thereafterwards, you will cover up for the other person, but you will never cavil another person. So by saying what he said in the second chapter, you find him here also reiterating. There he generalized it. Here he's telling Arjun, why did I give you this? Because you have asked by saying Shishyasteham Shadimam Tvam Prapannam. I am your Shishya. Give me that knowledge. You asked for it. And you also are qualified because you have Shraddha in me and you're also my Sakha. You're also my friend. So I have given it to you now, which was lost in a lapse of time, which also means that Arjun, even though he may have had pockets of information of what is dharma, it is likely to confuse him because the Samyak Gyan Parampara was not available even there. They were Kshatriyas, and even in the Kshatriyas, even though their kulas had Raja Rishis, by the time it must have come into their stages of life, the knowledge part had probably diminished and they were only increasing the valor part. So even though they are righteous, Pandavas are righteous, we also have Kauravas with them in the same society, in the same household, in the same home. That means this differentiation of finding the right knowledge which can help one to clear one's doubts so that one can take proper decisions and proper actions and right attitudes, practice them, develop them. That is precious, rare. You are my bhaktaha. Now another one, a nice point, which I think is worthy of sharing. As I said, I don't know where I have picked it up from, so I can't pick up the source, but it was a good point, highlights very well. Bhaktas are 5 kinds of bhav, bhakti. Bhakti is said to be 5 types of bhav, is bhakti. Shanta bhav, dasya, shanta, dasya, sakhya, vatsalya, and madhur. Five: Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vatsalya, Madhur. Now look, at each of them is actually a relation with Ishvara. Each of these bhav is a special relation, unique, of the person with Ishvara. What are these? Shanta bhav means you're shant, means you know Bhagwan is within you. Ishvara resides within you as your antaryami. Ishvara resides within you as your antaryami. The bhav that is there is shant. Dasya bhav, Krishna also said in the 3rd chapter, see me as your master and do your actions as a Bhritya, Das. And as I said, Vaishnava dharmas, in our parents' time also, if you were in a Vaishnava dharma, you would have a Tulsi ki Kanthi, they would call. Kanthi, why? Because neck is called Kantha, and you would have this Tulsi ki mala in your neck. And your names would have a Das after it. Like I would say my father's name is Harkishan Das. Ranchod Das was my grandfather's name. So what is this Das indicating? That I will be a Das of Ishvara for my life. Harkishan ka Das is representing the name. I am a Das of Harkishan. Him. That Dasya bhav mein, he will always be separate. Ishvara is always separate, and you're always serving. An attitude of service is formed, is developed because of the whole dharma itself as it allows it. So it's a Swami and a Bhritya bhav. That's the relation. In the first one, what's the relation? It's the closest to Advaita vision, where Antaryami, Ishwar is here itself. And in Vishnu Sahasranama, Shankara gave us a real clear view. Those who do upasana saying Ishvara is here himself. What is that upasana called?
Those who say that Ishvara is here.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a specific name of that upasana where when you say it is right here, Ahangraha upasana. Aham graha. Here within me is now Ishwar. So in that sense, Shanta Bhav, Dasya Bhav, then you have Vatsalya Bhav. Many of us know this Bhav. Vatsalya Bhav, a lot of homes would have Balgopal, etc. That is Vatsalya. Vatsalya means where you see Ishvara as a smaller form. How do I forget names? Now that I forget. What did Krishna's mother ask? Why was Krishna born here and gone there? Devaki and Yashoda. Why was he brought up in Yashoda's home? What did Yashoda ask?
She had asked to receive Bhagwan in her life as her son, just like Mother Kaushalya and had also asked.
Right. So that is Vatsalya Bhav. Vatsalya Bhav means the Bhav of seeing Bhagwan smaller than you and that Bhav of wanting to protect, nurture. That's the important part of the Bhav. You want to protect and nurture Ishvara. Seeing him as smaller than you. So you feel as a parent is the only way it is possible. So you keep them eternally small. Yeah? And so you can now do seva, you can do your lad pyar, you can do blah, blah. All of that, not blah, blah, I'm sorry, but all of that, etc., is what I mean. All of that. So that is Vatsalya Bhav. In the Madhura Bhav, you see Ishvara as your beloved, as your dear one, as someone that you would hold as an equal, and that having fondness for Ishvara as equal to yourself, that is Madhura Bhav. How did Meera see Krishna? In what Bhav?
Madhur Bhav.
Madhur Bhav. Now, in all these Bhavs,
sorry, Diptiji, it could be also say the same for the gopis and Krishna?
Yeah, but that's besides the point. This is just an example. Yeah, same. Correct. Now, in all these Bhavs, what is important? In all of these Bhavs, there is absolutely no need. There is, in all these Bhavs, Bhagwan as an Acharya is not invoked, is not sought. They don't need knowledge. In none of this Bhav, knowledge is needed. But the fifth Bhav, which is Sakha, it is only in this fifth Bhav that there is a possibility of an exchange of knowledge. Exchange means, now here in the question of Ishvara being your Sakha and being Ishvara, you will only receive knowledge from him. So the word Bhaktaha and Sakha together gives clear, yes, that is correct, Vatsalya. It gives clear, absolutely clear idea why Arjun was eligible, according to Krishna, to receive and revive this knowledge, because as he's going to say later in the chapter, yada yada hi dharmasya, as to revive dharma. Again, one of the jobs of Avatara is to also give out the knowledge so that next few generations it will last, it will inspire people. And when it starts to diminish again, he comes, manifests himself again, and revival takes place. And that is how we say Shankara was a manifestation. We look upon him as an avatar. Why? Because at that time, this knowledge was completely getting lost. The Vedic knowledge was getting completely lost and overridden by other influences, and other religions had erupted. And the Karma Kand part had so grown that it had become rigid in the society. It was not helping people grow. And that's where Bhagwan reinstated it again. So we say Shankara, by writing these bhashyams, did an absolute service to all of us. And that's why he can be looked upon as avatar. He says, because you are this. Who's the other one with whom Krishna had a Sakha Bhav? Anybody? I'm sure everybody knows, but this one.
Sudama.
Sudama, but Sudama, he did not give knowledge, though you're right. He had
Uddhav.
Balram.
Uddhav is absolutely correct. It was Uddhav with whom he had a Sakha Bhav. And he gave Uddhav Gita to Uddhav. When? Very interesting. If you observe Arjun, and Bhagwan has only given, if I know correctly, as much as I know, there are only 3 Gitas that have been spoken from Bhagwan. Bhagavad Gita, Anu Gita, again to Arjun, and Uddhav Gita. Maybe some more I'm not aware of. I'll have to recheck. But these 3 for sure, of course. Uddhav Gita was given to Uddhav. But what was the difference in Uddhav's condition and Arjun's condition? Arjun also had Shok and Moh. He had Moh along with Shok. And it was much more intense, if I were to use the word. His state of mind was much more disturbed because the situation was also such in front of him. But Uddhav also had Shok, but he did not have Moh of confusion. His Moh was of attachment, but more his confusion was of a prashna, general prashna. The dukh that he had, the shok that Uddhav had, was when Krishna had decided to exit his earthy body and go back because his job was done. So he was going back. And at that time, he was taking the Yadu clan with him. All the Yadavas were also going to be, the clan was to be destroyed behind him. So Uddhav was in a state of question. He couldn't understand, why is Bhagwan doing this? And Bhagwan tells him why, because Yadavas were becoming so proud and cruel in time. Krishna said they would become, that they will create chaos in the society. So I cannot, so in other words, they also had to be like the Kauravas, they were also to be dealt with. And Uddhav at that time had said, take me also then with you. And there Krishna said, you are still not an adhikari for moksha. And he gave him knowledge which was pertaining to Uddhav's eligibility. Uddhav had no war to fight. It was in the last stages, and it was majorly on Upasana. Primarily his sadhana was to be Upasana. So Uddhav Gita content is very different from, not very, but it is different. 2 adhikaris different. What is the idea? The idea is that this knowledge, it is not in a set rule. ऐसा ही करेगा, हर कोई ऐसा ही करेगा. The principles are set, and they are, if you indulge in your senses, you go towards bondage. Basic principle, therefore, do your karmas or your upasanas, qualify yourself, or your chintan, mananam, etc. This will be overall applicable to everybody. That's the path. But it's point of application to each one is truly dependent upon one's own independent gunas and independent progress one has made since past. Progress as in how much knowledge one has in this present life one has woken up with. Means how much are you now ready to move towards your Atma Vidya. So he says, this knowledge, Uttamam, this is the highest knowledge, supreme most. You can interpret in English many ways this Uttamam, but Uttamam means the superlative category, bestest, if we were to say. Good, better, best. That is good. Good will be the lowest, better than good, and best, better than better and good. Uttamam, superlative. It is the best. This knowledge is the best. Everything falls under this. There'll be better knowledges, but it is not Uttamam. There'll be good knowledge, but not Uttamam. So you have many grades of knowledges over here. Grades and grades of knowledges available in the world. To each one according to their adhikari, they will be drawn to that knowledge. Everybody is not drawn to this knowledge. In fact, right in front of Krishna, I personally revel in this thought very often because that gives me a pratipaksh. Right in front of Krishna, the receiver was only these few. Hanuman, said to be there on the flag, Arjun, and Sanjay, Here he is just, Uddhav, in his entire lifespan of Krishna. He has only fought battles, lived like if you look at Bhagavatam and the stories around it, he's gone through all the stages of a human life. When he was a Bal, he's done all the Krida of a Balak. When he's a Yauvan, he's done all the Tamasha of a Yauvan. When he grows, but all along, he's going to say now in the fifth verse onwards, he's now going to establish that his own knowledge of who he is has not got hidden, forgotten, even when he's there as a form, living amongst us, living all the stages like anybody, to such an extent that Kauravas are imposing on him absolutely anishwaratva. Who is he? He is Ishwar. What are Kauravas seeing in him? Anishwaram. Means they are calling him what? Manipulator, and calling him all sorts of even Gandhari told him that, etc. Now, what is the purpose of all this? This Uttamam knowledge. It is eternally available, but at the same time, lack of upholders reduce the possibility of it being transferred untainted to the next generations. Even if there is someone who upholds it, the possibility further drops because the receiver is not there. The receiver is sensorily involved. The receiver is not at the same readiness to receive the knowledge, and it falls further. So this Uttamam knowledge appears to be rahasyam. It becomes rarely available because the right match of the teacher and the student is virtually a great bhagyam or an upasana, probably. I don't know what it would be called. It is a great punya phal, as Shastra says it. I'm not saying this. It's a great punya phal to receive it absolutely as is. The vision that gets Shastra teaches us and comes down. That is why it is, our invocations are all Namaskar to the Parampara. Shankaracharya Madhyamam. He's in the middle. Before that, there are these teachers who handed it down. After him, there are teachers who handed it down. And here this knowledge becomes available to us. It is literally like touching the source of knowledge. If the Mukham has been Ishvara himself, I have diluted my stand a lot now, but in the beginning when I used to teach, it was a very, very firm stand. Unless and until we see Bhagavad Gita also actually as Bhagwan Uvacha, the receptivity of this knowledge gets dissipated into seeing leadership in it, seeing skill in Gita, and as if Gita is telling us all this. Common sense, I'm sorry to say it so bluntly, but we need common sense sometimes. Can Bhagwan be giving knowledge of how to be a better leader? Yes, the verses will apply. I'm not saying it's wrong. But Bhagwan's knowledge will be obviously given at the level of saying, how will you get freed of the samsara? That you become a better leader is an incidental process of you following the right values. You become a better person overall. Why just a leader? You will be effective, you will be skillful, you will be, to such an extent, they say, you will be charming, you will be beautiful, everything that you wish for, everything falls into place. But does that mean the knowledge is asking you to make that, fulfill that goal of your life? That's not the purpose of the knowledge, to fulfill those goals in your life. So it becomes a fairly contradictory stand that floats in the society. That is why we say it is very, 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 I personally think it is, to come to the point, you have to discern, shed off a lot of superficial and superimposed meanings into Shastra. And there's so many interpretations that are possible, but you have to keep shedding them off till you arrive at what ought to be the right meaning. Why do you know it is the right meaning? Best is to follow the acharyas, their own words. Let's not deviate into our own thinking at all. Our thinking will have its shortfalls. So he said here, I have given this to you. Now, first 3 verses, Bhagwan thought, ho gaya. Now Arjun will say, all right, thank you, Bhagwan. Nashto moha smritar labdva. I've understood what I ought to do. I have to fight this war. It is my swadharma. I have to do it at Ishwararpan. I dedicate this. I will not look for fruits. I know that at this point, the unrighteous have to be dealt with. It's fallen into my karma bhumi. It has fallen into my karma kshetra. I am a Kshatriya. This is my karam kshetra. This is my karam bhumi. This is my portfolio of responsibility. This is my file. It has come to my table. So I'll have to deal with it. There's nobody else who has to take this dealing. The file's on my table, so I have to deal with this file. All of us have some files on our table because of our own temperaments. We all have certain such files open that only we have to deal with. Bhagwan thought Arjun will say this. And nicely, the war would have started, bugles had already gone. And but thanks to Arjun. Arjuna uvacha aparam bhavato janma parai janma vivasvataha katham etad vijaniyan tvamadau proktavaniti. Arjuna uvacha aparam bhavato janma parai janma vivasvataha kathame tadvijaniyan tvamadau proktavaniti. Arjun said, I'll give the Anvaya first. Before that, are the 3 verses absolutely clear? Do you need a translation to fall back into to remember the verse later? Would it be better or should we just continue? If anyone thinks we can just continue, we'll continue. If you want translation. Okay, since no one is saying, let's continue. Hanji?
You can continue.
All right, great, wonderful, excellent. So now Arjun says the Anvaya I will definitely give because it helps to understand. Arjun Uvacha. Now Arjun said. What did he say? Aparam. Keep hearing the words for the samskar to fall so that if Bhagyam has Sanskrit in our life sometimes, maybe it will help us. Aparam. Bhavataha. Janma. Param. Janma vivasvataha. Katham etat vijaniyam. Tvam adau proktavan iti. So if you do the breakup anvaya of this, bhavataha means your, with respect. What we say in Hindi as aap. When it's friends, what do we say? Tu. But for elders or teachers or wives, we say aap. Bhavataha. That's in Sanskrit. Bhavataha. Aap. Janma. Birth. Aparam. Later. Now. In front of me. Approximately. Born now. Aparam. Recent. Born to Vasudeva and Devaki. Your Janma is now. Param Janma Vivasvata. Excuse me. Vivasvataha. Vivaswan. Janma Param. Bahut pehle. Long ago. Because he only said Adau Proktavaniti. In the first verse, what did Bhagavan say? I gave this to Vivaswan in the beginning of creation. Adau. So Vivaswan is in the Adi of creation. And you gave him then. And here you just said, Bhaktasi me sakha chaiti rahasyam hi etat uttamam proktaha yogaha. I have just given this puratanaha yogaha proktaha to you, O Arjun. You gave it to Son, God. And then the parampara started. Look at this. He gave it to Son God, and Son God gave it to, who was the next one he gave it to?
Manu.
To Manu.
To Manu. Okay. He gave it to Manu, and Manu gave it to
To
Ikshvaku.
Ishvaku.
And that Ikshvaku, then the parampara started, the solar dynasty started, his own lineage started. But you are saying you gave it to Sun God and you are giving it to me. His question is, Katham, how? Etat vijaniyam, how am I to understand this? This is the right translation. How am I to know this? You can say, etat, this. Vijaniyam, understand. Vijaniyam, therefore it should be. How am I to understand these contradictory statements? Again, contradictory. Where was the other contradiction seen that Arjun felt?
Whether to fight or not to fight.
Exactly. So where in the verse? Where in the chapter? Which chapter?
Chapter 3, first verse, I think.
So
Yeah,
what, very good. What was the question he had asked there?
Why are you asking me to do a ghor karm when you are highlighting the Gyan mark?
Exactly. When you are highlighting Gyan mark for Shreyas, you are asking me to ghor karma. I am confused. Please remove my confusion. Again, Arjun saying, I am now confused. How am I to understand that you gave this knowledge to Aditya and you are giving it to me? Is this not a valid confusion again? It is valid. Tvam adav proktavaniti. How am I to understand that you gave it in the beginning? You were the Vakta, Proktavan. You were the giver of this knowledge in the beginning. How am I to understand this statement? He's not asking, how am I to understand that you are giving me the knowledge now? He says, I have accepted that this knowledge is Puratan. I have accepted this knowledge is Uttamam. I have accepted this knowledge is Rahasyam. I am accepting what you are saying is Vedartham. I am accepting that you are saying is eternal truth and I should act based on those principles of life. And that knowledge was lost in time and you have given it to me. I receive that. I have no problem with that statement. But I'm not able to understand. How is it that you gave it to Aditya in the beginning? Madhusudan Saraswati here gives a very beautiful analysis. He says, there are only two possibilities. I'll try and summarize. If I can't, we'll take it all over again, but I should fairly be able to. He says there are two possibilities. Either it is this body that I see now. You must have been in the same body then also. Because averagely what happens for all of us, when we have a body, we forget the previous lifetimes. We don't remember all that, what has gone before us. So you must have given it in the same body. If you have given it in the same body, that means you are not Jiva. You're not Alpa like us. You're not an individual form like us. You remember what you have given to Sun, and you remember now what you have given to, and you're saying the same thing to me now. You remember this. Whereas we don't remember anything. We don't even remember our childhood things. We don't even remember 1 month ago what we ate. We don't even remember. I would not even remember what I had 2 days ago, or etc. Our memory is very limited, very, very limited. But your memory seems to hold everything. And it can't be the same form. So one possibility is the same form. The other possibility is that the form is not the same. But this memory that you have is continuing, has not lapsed itself. So maybe in another form, but you remember, which we don't. So if it is through another form, but you remember, then you are Sarvagnya. Sarvagnya means all-knower. You know everything. You remember everything. You know everything. If it is given in this body itself, then you are Nityam. You eternally exist. You are not dying. You are always there. So the Nityatvam of you and your own self being Sarvagnya. He says both these aspects are showing to us that only Ishwar can be that. You must be Ishwar only. And that Shankaracharya puts in his Bhashyam to say, the 4th verse before that, the Sambandha, that there'll be many people, when they hear this, I gave it to you, there'll be many people. Does he use the word? He uses the word Mudha somewhere. 1 second. Here. Before the 5th, we are on the, which verse are we on? Numbers confuse me so badly. We are on the 4th verse. Okay. So he says, Bhagavata vipratishiddham uktam. As if contradictory words have been given by Bhagwan. In this way, ma bhoot kasyachit buddhihi iti. Nobody's buddhi should conclude Bhagwan is confusing, Bhagwan is giving contradictory statements, etc. Therefore, pariharartham cha adyam iva kurvan. For the sake of removal of such a doubt that others may hold falsely, concluding in a limited way. How is it possible? Cavilling people will say, ये कैसा भगवान है तुम्हारा? वो कहता है मैंने सूर्य भगवान को दिया, अब मैं तुम्हें दे रहा हूं. ये कैसा भगवान? ये कैसा है? How is it possible? That nobody should deem it, look upon it in a light way, or think that Bhagwan is confusing people, allegate Bhagwan wrongly. And this happens in life also. When people don't understand you, they will allegate you of wrong things. Because it's nothing to do with the person. It is to do with adhikaratvam of the receipt of knowledge. जब हमारी बुद्धि में अल्पज्ञत्वम है, हमारी बुद्धि में राग द्वेष है, हमारी बुद्धि में छोटापन है, अहंकार है. So we see things from there. So on Bhagwan also, like all the Kauravas did, etc. Kauravas and the Mama, Shakuni, etc. All of them. In the same way, he says, so that this doubt needs to be addressed. So Arjun asks this question for all of us, on behalf of all of us. And it could be for his own sake also. Doesn't matter. Both things are correct. So, eva ayam. I'm sorry, I'm going back. So he said, how aparam. Aparam, Shankara gives the word arvak. Arvak means modern times, later. What we would call as modern today. Abhi. Vasudeva grihe. Bhavataha janma. You were born in the house of Vasudeva. Clear language. Param. Purvam. Pehle. Sargado. In the beginning. Janma. Utpatti. Birth. Vivasvataha. Adityaha. Tat katham. Etat vijaniya. Aviruddharthataya. Because they seem to be contradictory. Without contradiction, how am I to understand this? That you said it to him first, and now you are giving it to me. And with this now, Shankara gives this sambandh between 4th and 5th before Bhagwan starts answering. Why does Bhagwan start answering? He could have easily said, none of your business, get down to fight. Shank bach chuka hai, they're all ready, arms have been picked up. Don't be bothered about when I gave, why I gave, to whom. I have given you the process now. You act on this for your sake. Get to fight. But no. Ya Vasudeve Anishwara Asarvagnya Ashanka. Fantastic. As we just said, Madhusudan ji has told us that we may think he is Anishwar. This is a Mr. Vasudev, Mr. Krishna telling us. So his buddhi is also unka opinion, unki samajh, whether I follow or I don't follow, etc. We may think of him as Anishwar and Asarvagnya, that he doesn't have all the knowledge. Such an ashanka, such a doubt can be there in whom? Murkhanam. In all the murkhas. Who's the murkha? Fools is a bad translation of murkha. Murkha I should find the Vyutpatti. Murkha means dull, dumb. Thinking is not there. No thinking. Dumb thinking. Or falsely connecting the causes and effects. They don't have the logical sequence of thinking. The buddhi hasn't gone through the discipline of right thinking process. There is a right thinking process also. Inquiry is all causation. Which cause brings about which effect? And then, as we have seen in the pramanas, through inference, through arthapatti, all these are processes of right thinking. If one has right discipline of thinking, one will always arrive at right conclusions. You cannot go wrong if you have your right process of thinking in place, developed. It's a development. So a lot of our shastra, like Nyaya Shastra, etc., was taught also to children because Nyaya develops the logical process of thinking, which in today's world, say, maths and science does to people. So you have causational build-up. And so you can arrive at, you can go backwards at causes and you can go forward in effects, and your thinking process will be correct. But those who do not have this developed, and they will mix up this causation realms, they are murkhas. Tam pariharan. To remove this ashanka from people, Shri Bhagwan Uvacha. Bhagwan gave this answer, which is now one of the... There are few portions in the Bhagavad Gita which suddenly look very out of context to what was Arjun's situation and the questions he had asked. But they fall in the context of the totality of the knowledge of the Vedas and the Puranas. Now Bhagwan is giving the knowledge of Avatara. That Avatara Rahasya topic. Anybody has written what verses we said it is from where to where? Nobody's written? 5th to 12th?
Until 15th.
15 to 24.
Sorry. No. Avatara Rahasya is between
Until
5th to 15th. 1 to 15 total, or else you can
1 to
call it-
15 total, correct.
Total.
1 to 15, yes.
Otherwise, now 5th onwards, exactly. The first 3 you can say goes into lineage. 4th is Arjun's question, and 5th onwards up to 9th for sure. We'll come to that now. 9th for sure, and then later on he moves into one, but the whole topic will be condensed up to 15th verse. Now Bhagwan is going to address Arjun's question and give us the knowledge of the difference between Avatara Upadhi and Jiva Upadhi. Upadhi means all this, our birth has brought us. Body, mind, senses, intellect, this aggregate that we call as Jiva, I, subject to birth and death, subject to Sukh and Dukh, subject to limited ends and means, capacities, limited Shakti, subject to limitations in every way, only having very limited knowledge and very, very limited memory, and having a lot of limitless ahankar, I should say. No, huge ahankar, having a lot of ahankar. Yes, 5 to 15, very good. So that is who we are. And what is Avatara Upadhi? Now, here we says we'll just start the verse and we'll continue in the next class. Shri Bhagavanuvacha Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava charjuna Tanyaham Veda Sarvani Na Tvam Vedha Parantapa. Shri Bhagavan Bahuni me Shri Bhagavan Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava charjuna tanyaham veda sarvani na tvam vedha parantapa. Shri Bhagavan said, in my mind, in our hearts and mind, our namaskar definitely deserved at this point, or due is the right word at this point. He says, Bahuni me vyatitani. The verse first, Bahuni me vyatitani. Janmani tava charjuna. Tani aham ved sarvani. Na tvam vedha parantap. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava cha Arjuna tani aham ved sarvani na tvam vedha parantapa. That's why. Interesting. Where did Krishna use the word parantapa abhi recently?
I think it was in
Verse
the
2. Chapter
second
verse 2.
chapter.
Just now, fourth
Yes.
chapter, verse
Four
Verse-
chapters, verse 2.
Exactly. He used the word parantapa. And the one who scorches the enemy means he's a Kshatriya. In the first line, he addresses him as Arjun. So, in the first line, the Anvay goes as He Parantapa of the second line. Also, Hey Arjun. It can be done two ways actually. I'm sticking to this for now. Hey Parantapa, Hey Arjun. Me Tava cha bahuni janmani vyatitani. Me, mere. Cha tava, and yours also. Bahuni janmani vyatitani. Many births have happened for both of us. Any other verse you can remember where Bhagavan has said something similar? Many births of yours and mine, or many births of all these kings have happened. Second chapter, 12th verse. Chapter 2, very good. Excellent, Shalini. Chapter 2, 12th verse. Where he said, Natve vaham jatu nasam. Not that you have not been there before. Na asam aham. Not that I have not been there. Nattu eva aham jatu na asam. Na tvam neme janadhipaha. Not that you and I have not been there before, and not that all these kings have not been there. Nacha eva na bhavishyamaha. Not that in the future we will all not be there. In other words,
Nobody dies. Nobody dies.
So, in other words, even as a jiva, what we said yesterday, what are we? Eternal. Jivatvam is eternal. Till eternal means it is continuously there, but conditionally, as long as avidya is there, it can come to an end. Till that time, it is continuously there. So he said there in the second chapter also that I and you have all been there, these kings have all been there also, and in the future also will all be there. Therefore, what is the 13th verse he had said there? Quickly go back. You must be having your books. Should I go back?
So I think he says that Dehi knows. So he just says that
Very good. Correct. Correct. So he had shown there the Nitya and the Anitya Jivatva. The Nitya, which means Atma, will remain eternally present. And this Jiva Bhav changingly remains ever there. Dehinosman yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptihi tatra muhya
Dhiras tatra na muhyati.
muhyati. Tatra na muhyati. But before that also, so he said there, after that the whole portion of Atma Vidya had started, where he gave the knowledge of Atma being your Swarupa. That was knowledge to Arjun. Now Bhagwan is saying, Bahuni me vyatitani. Many of your births and mine have been there, but Tani aham veda sarvani. I know them all. But you, na tvam vetha. But you, that is a tvam ke saath, vetha. You do not know, O Parantapa. You do not know these, but I know them all. I know everything. And then similarly, he's going to say now in the next verse, but this verse will need a little explanation. We'll take that in the next class. 5th verse onwards. Avatar Rahasya. Many people ask this question. Is Avatar real? Hota bhi hai? Is it possible? If you truly follow the Vaidika vision, manifestation is constantly there. Even Jiva is a manifestation. Jivatvam is also manifestation. So if a small manifestation happens, the total manifestation is also possible. So Avatara is a very unique, one of the points, I think in Tattva Bodh one time, in the beginning classes, if anybody remembers, I took the difference between why Vedas are different from the rest of the religions and what are the topics that Vedas deal with. One of them was Avatara, the topic of Avatara. And Bhagavad Gita, why is it a completely condensed knowledge? Because it gives all the knowledges of the Vedas in concise manner. Now this part, though it has nothing to do with Arjun's immediate situation, but it has to do with the pramanyam of the path, which is Karam Yoga for Shuddhi. That pramanyam is established because it is Bhagwan Mukha Uvacha, said by Bhagwan. So we'll end this here for today. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhave. Kale Varshatu Parjanyaha Prithvi Sasya Shalini Deshoyam kshoparahitah brahmana santa nirbhayaः. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
धन्यवाद दीप्ति जी.
धन्यवाद दीप्ति जी.
Yes, yeah, thank you. I was going Zoom direct to YouTube today. I think tomorrow, next class onwards, I figured out this was a little new to me. But next class onwards, we will stick to the original way we were doing, both places, Facebook and this. But those who are joining, please continue to join here as well, because everything from 5th chapter I was originally going to integrate. So get into the habit of, if you are joining, please continue to join. And those who are listening, please continue to listen where you are. Next time onwards, I think we'll do that. The secret knowledge given in this because of Avatara Rahasya? No. The secret part of it that he's referring to is referring to the path, pravritti and nivritti, and the Vaidika view entirely, not just Avatara. That actually is not that when you go by the grammatical portion, the Visheshan and the Visheshya, then the Rahasya, with which word should you attach Rahasya? So it gets attached to the yoga, not to Avatara. Okay. So thank you everyone. Hari Om.